Welcome to the first Android Budapest meetup, which will happen monthly on the first Tuesday of every month, or Thursday. Sorry, this is Thursday. So welcome, and thank you for coming. Big turnout tonight, and I'm glad you all made it through the traffic blocks and issues with parking. We're going to have 2 talks tonight, 20 minutes each, and then some Q&A. And after the talks, we'll have pizza and beer for you guys to socialize and enjoy up in this bistro area here. So our first speaker tonight is going to be Alpar Gabos. He's my colleague at Prezi in the Android team. He's the tech lead of the Android team and has built the Android application from the ground up at Prezi and seen it evolve through many things. And tonight he's going to be talking about how they rewrote the networking stack and why they did it and what we gained from their work.
Thank you, Kelly. My father is a shoemaker, a pretty good one actually. He made all of my shoes when I was a little kid. But I have a big brother. So actually my father made shoes for my big brother and I inherited them. Welcome to life of a little brother, right? I specifically remember I was in 5th grade and the winter was coming. And my father made a new pair of boots for my big brother, and I got my old boots, my big brother old boots. And they were like coal miner boots with this steel safety toe part and everything. It was really heavy. It was really bulky. It was really hard to walk in them, and also it was really hard to put onto my foot. But back then, that was the only boots that I had. So I thought that those boots are so super. I have the coolest boots ever. I only realized later that I was wrong. When a year later, my father made me lightweight winter boots. And these lightweight winter boots were just perfect. They were lightweight, they were my style, I really loved them. It was really easy to get on onto my foot, and it was really easy walking on them and wearing it. So why I'm telling this story to you? Because the feeling that I got when I first write our first network request in our new network stack, it was the same feeling when I got these lightweight winter boots. But how we arrived to this feeling, I will talk about that in this presentation. So when I joined the Android team, we already had a prototype, and that prototype already had a network stack in place. So we just started building on top of it. And over time we realized that it wasn't so good. But let's first define what is a network stack. So what I define as a network stack. So in my point of view, a network stack consists from 3 parts. It's an HTTP client that could create an HTTP URL connection and could communicate to that connection. Also, it contains requests that you can send with the HTTP client, and you can get response for it. And you need also data classes which hold the information returned by the responses. So in our old network stack, we used the java.net HTTP URL connection. That's a pretty low-level stuff. So you have to write your post request, your get request, and you have to take care of everything. But we did that. We created the Prezi HTTP client. But also we had to somehow run the network request on it in an async manner, because on Android you can't run it on the main thread, obviously. So we had to execute it on a background thread and then get back the results to the main thread. So for that we used RoboSpice. I don't know how many of you know RoboSpice. No one. Obviously, lots of those. So RoboSpice is a background service, so a service running in the background, and you can give Spice request to it, and it will execute the request on the background and gives back the result on the main thread. So basically what we had to do is we had this Spice request, we had to create our network request from it, and every time we had to implement a new API call, we had to create the specific network request and the specific network request handler for it. And of course, we had to store the data, so we write plain old Java objects with hash code and equals. And also, some of the data classes were passing through between activities, so we had to implement parcel label methods for them. And of course, all of the responses came as a JSON, so we had to map the JSON files to the objects itself. But this is a really well-thought structure, so this is a really clear structure. Whenever we had to write a new API call, we know what to do and where to do it. So why were we not happy with it? After the 10th request, we realized that we write a lot of boilerplate code. And we have a lot of custom classes, which means that even some basic functionality was missing from them. So every time we needed something like not in our code, we had to write it. And of course, we couldn't use it everywhere because there were RoboSpice network requests, which was made for running in RoboSpice. You couldn't run in another background service because it would be like too strange to request RoboSpice from a background service, because then it will be two background services talking with each other. And of course, we had to manually handle the lifecycle of RoboSpice that we didn't do most of the time. And the saddest thing was that the library is not maintained anymore, or at least not actively maintained anymore. So these were my and our pain points. So what was the solution? We sit down together with the team and we figured out, okay, if you have too many boilerplate, what should you do? Generate the code. If you have custom classes, that means that you just need a library that has these extended functionality that you need. And because a network stack is pretty standard, most of the things are already implemented. So you can find that kind of library. If you can't use anywhere, it means that you just need a library that is flexible enough. Manual lifecycle handling, it only happens if you use a library which is not exactly built for Android. So we just have to find a library that is built for Android. And if it's something that's not maintained, the solution for that, either you maintain it, or you just find a library which is really well known and a lot of companies and people using it. So these were our criteria. So we did a week of research and we tried out a lot of libraries and we came up with this new network stack. For HTTP client, we started using OKHTTP. How many of you knows OKHTTP? Lots of people. So it's well known, right? Of course, we wasn't asking people in the street that do you know it and then deciding it's well known. I checked the GitHub. And on GitHub, I saw that there is 18,000 stars on that repo. And it's almost 5,000 forks. So it means that a lot of people using it and also a lot of people contributing to it. So that should be really good. But I was a little bit skeptical, so I checked the most important website in a developer's life, Stack Overflow. All of the questions you have is answered there. So you just have to check. And I checked. OKHTTP. There is almost 5,000 questions and answers. So I thought that if there is 5,000 questions and answers, then most probably it will answer all of my questions that I don't have in the future without asking it, because it's already there. But of course, I read a lot and read through the performance reports and check the repo and stuff, so it wasn't just based on GitHub and Stack Overflow. So OpenHTTP is an HTTP client. You can have a connection with it, and also it's able to execute your network request async and sync. So it's a pretty good library. It's so good that even Android started using its core in the Android.NET package. So from 4.3 Android version, the core of the OpenHTTP is also included in the Android source code. So we have this network client, and it could execute the network request. So what we need is just having network request. But we knew that we had a lot of boilerplate code even in the network request, so we started searching for a library that could generate network request. And here is when retrofit 2 comes into the picture. So with retrofit, you just have to write a service skeleton, and based on that skeleton, I will show examples later. Based on that skeleton, retrofit could generate your whole network request. So with a service skeleton, you will have your network request. And of course, I also checked them on GitHub. It has more than 18,000 stars and almost 4,000 forks. So it's well known. And also, OpenHTTP and retrofit was written by Square, so they work pretty well together. And the third one, the data classes, because now we have our client and we have our request, so we have to store somewhere the results. And for data classes, that was the biggest part where we wrote most of the boilerplate code. So I started searching and I found that there is an auto value library written by Google. It's not a well-known library, but it's written and maintained by Google, so it's a trustworthy one. And with auto value, you just have to write a data skeleton, and from that skeleton, it will generate the value classes for you. A value class means that it has all of the fields, the accessor methods, plus proper hash code, proper equals, and the proper toString method. And with the auto value parcel extension, you can easily just generate the parcel methods for the class. And with the JSON extension, you can generate the JSON mapping. So basically, with this new stack, you just write 2 skeleton classes, and you will have all of the things what you need for a network stack. So what does it mean in practice? So what it meant for us in practice? So let's see the most used request in our code base. So when you log into the Android application, you will see a Prezi list. All the items on the Prezi list are basically built upon a Prezi description, a Prezi metadata. So the most important network request we have is basically getting the Prezi descriptions. So with the old setup, we had 6 classes to be able to get the network request, plus they had their own test, because we wrote all of the 6 classes, we had to write the test for them. With the new setup, we just had to write like 3 classes, and because I'm kind of paranoid, we write a test for the service. But you didn't really need it because it's generated. You can trust me, but I'm kind of paranoid, so we write a test for the Prezi list, so all of the services, just to see that everything is generated is working well together. So in total, in this case, it means that we have like 1,340 lines of code, and that's became 314. That's a huge thing, right? So that's how much we could generate. So just for a visual clue, there are classes that you have to write. Like Prezi description, we already had a Prezi description, but we had to then write a new one. So that's the old one, and that's the new one. It's smaller, right? That's the old one, that's the new one. And for the list service, that's the old one, and this is the new one. It's a little bit different, right? So for us, just based on the amount of code that we don't have to write, we don't have to maintain, we don't have to test, it's totally worth it. But the question is, does it or will it work for you to do this transition if you are not using already this setup? And we can answer this question really easily. Let's see an example, and I will explain how you can create this network request in this example, and you can think through in your head that with your current network stack, how easy will it be. And if it will be easier with your network stack, then tell me your network stack. Or if it's harder, then you can think, or you can like start thinking to using this network stack. Of course, I haven't mentioned that also it has a better speed, our crash-free rate rose after we implemented the new network stack. So there are other things that was really good for us, not just the line of code, but the line of code was the biggest one. So the example, get the actors and the producer for Game of Thrones from the movie database. Because we are writing this from scratch, we have to first give the dependencies and create an OkHttp client and create a retrofit service, the JSON mapping, create the data classes, and call the service. So that's what we have to do. So the dependencies. It's pretty clear. We have the OkHttp, the retrofit, we have JSON converter, the auto value and its extension, the parser label, and the JSON. So you give the dependencies, then you create an OkHttp client. Pretty simple, right? And then you can start building your JSON. So with JSON, there is a little trick that we used. If you create JSON type adapter factory, this is the exact code that you have to also write that I wrote here. It will automatically collect all of the type adapters from the value classes. So you don't have to register manually. Whenever you write a new class, you just provide a type adapter, and this class will collect it. So that's why we registering this type adapter factory here to the JSON. And when we are done with the JSON, then we are creating the retrofit. And with retrofit, you have to provide your base URL. In this case, it's the api.themoviedb.org. And then adding the converter factory and the call factory, which is our HTTP client, and we just build the retrofit. And if you have the retrofit, then we just need a service. And this is the thing that you have to write in retrofit. And retrofit will generate all of the service for you. So basically, you just need to write an interface which has a method annotated with get or post, and you give the URL to it, the API endpoint. And of course, you can use also like variables here, like this ID is get it from here, like the TV series ID. And also you can add query parameters and many more things. But in this case, we need just a query parameter, which is the API key, because we have to authenticate with this service. And in return, this will give back a credit. Credit will be our auto value class. So that's what you have to write, and retrofit will generate your network request. So auto value. So here is the movie database, what says that here is the structure, the scheme that you have to implement, or you can get that from this API endpoint. So you have a cast array and you have a crew array. So basically what we have to write is like with auto value, you have to provide abstract classes that's annotated with auto value and abstract getters for your fields. And everything else will be taken care of by auto value. Of course, you have to provide this type adapter. This is kind of the same everywhere. It is generated, but you have to create a public accessor method to it, because then our factory could find it. So this is kind of boilerplate code, but one line, we can survive with that, right? So we write our credit class. It has an ID, cast member, crew members, and then you just write the cast members. We are interested in the character and its name, and also for crew member, we are interested in the name and the job, because we want to know that he is the executive producer or she is the executive producer. So the service call, this is the last step. So we have our retrofit service, and we ask retrofit, so please create a credit service for me. And on that credit service that you created, please get the credits off and the ID and the API key. And then you will say that, okay, but I want this to be executed in the background, so please enqueue it and run it on the background thread, and when you are ready, please put the response back into this callback. And in the callback, you get a response which contains the credit. So if you get the response.body, you will get the credit class, which is our auto value class, data class, and then just from the credit you can get the cast. And also you can get the crew, and you can find out who is the producer. So that's how easy it is to write a new service. I created this project from scratch at home in about like 10 minutes. Well, I shouldn't have told this, because here is my product manager and will ask me tomorrow that what I did in the last few days. But that's how it is now. So it's just 10 minutes from creating the Android project and running the emulator and getting the answer. 10 minutes. So if you can do that with your network stack or the network stack compilation, then tell me. So if you didn't know the feeling, how it feels to getting a lightweight boot after a coal miner boot, then that's the feeling it is. Thank you very much. Questions? There is one.
Okay, I just
up there.
I think I can speak loud enough. Okay.
Does it really work?
Yeah.
For the recording, we need the mic.
Okay, how long did it take to rewrite the network set?
Product manager, too long, right? Everything is too long. I'm not sure. Lotzi, could you help me? Like, I think we spent, 3 weeks. Because, like, maybe it's 4.
4 with the tests.
Oh yeah. So as I said, I'm a little paranoid, so we write a lot of tests. So yeah, it was around that.
4 weeks for how many people?
Mainly I was working on that. So it's right. Yeah. So mainly I was working on that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Other question. How many lines we moved?
How many lines did you move?
I think Lottie said like, how many? 45,000? 60,000. Yeah. It was a little bit a big pull request.
What was the hardest part?
hardest part, convincing the product manager that we really need it. No, just joking. Hardest part is probably the research and deciding that this is the good way to go. That's the hardest part. Once you decide it, you just go with the flow. And fortunately, when we rewrote the whole thing, in the process, we realized that it's so easy to use it. Like there wasn't really big problems, even though we have like really strange things on the back end. We could easily just accommodate the whole network stack. Like so, for OKHTTP, for example, there is interceptors. Then you can intercept the request, also the response also. So if you have to put a special cookie in it, you can just create an interceptor which will put the special cookie into that package. So like not in the place where you invoke, when you invoke that host, that service, but with an interceptor. So like you can do really crazy things with it, but it was really easy. Right? Okay, so thank you.
I have so many more questions. I'll ask you later. So thanks, Alpar.